Hey everyone, this isn't a new thing. This is not that I don't think this is gonna be a consistent thing that's happening. Um I I've been wanting to shave my beard off, and I went to do that today before going on stream, and come to find out, my electric razor is busted. Uh, so I spent 40 minutes with like a manual razor trying to take off the entirety of my beard, with the mustache being the last thing, because I knew if I was running late for the stream, regardless of how weird this looks right now, that it would look more normal than like having one side of my face still covered in hair. Um, I'm seeing Twitch is the best, saying for me to keep it. Maybe we'll run a poll as the stream goes through to see what comes of this, because like I'm not really going anywhere, so I have nowhere to be embarrassed by this being my new reality for a minute. I've been so distracted today that I forgot it was a Thursday until I got the notification on Discord. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I forgot that it was Thursday as well, because as soon as I woke up, my first thought was, holy shit, we had Trump supporters trying to storm the Capitol yesterday. So, you know, my head's been in other places. Which maybe had I remembered today was Thursday, I would have had time to get rid of the mustache. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it. It does need to, at the very least, be cleaned up a little bit, because this does look very bushy and lopsided right now. But so today we are hopping into the next two chapters of Harley Quinn Mad Love, the 2018 novelization of the Paul Dini comic and New Batman Adventures episode by Paul Dini and Pat Cadigan. I do not know how much involvement Paul had with the book itself, past doing the base story that the book is based around. But there's been a lot of interesting additions. If you haven't been here for this, we got Harley as a child. We got much more into Harley at college, and we've been with Harley in, as an Arkham staff member for weeks now, going through these chapters. So it's been a lot of fun, getting to go through and see an expanded version of that. Somebody last week, they were taking the Arkham inmates to the pool, and it was supposed to be low risk inmates, but Harley snuck Joker in on the thing, and one of you suggested last time that this must be the lead up to the 3 weeks that he had escaped, as seen in the comic and the cartoon show, and you were correct. I skimmed through so that I could figure out a relevant panel to post this morning, and that happened to be the one. Oh, hold on. Hey, Sissy, can you make sure the internet isn't the same internet on the PlayStation? I'm getting skipped frame alerts in here. Please and thank you. Yeah, as I've said, I wasn't entirely prepared today. When you tweeted shaving mishap, I thought you meant you cut your cheek, but I like this much better. I did. There are a couple cuts in the neck beard area. So it's not a brutal bloody mess. But I do look silly. Hey, conspiracy buff. But yeah, so we're doing. Did you miss the story? It's a complete accident. I did not mean to do this. I just kind of didn't realize that my electric shaver was busted after I put all the shaving cream on my face, and I ran out of time to take everything off before getting on the stream. But let's see. So we're starting up with chapter 23, picking up from Joker escaping on the way to the pool party last week. As always, I'll be trying to take notes in between chapters, or if there's a chapter break, I'll take notes there. I've got the chat up on my phone over here, so I will be able to glance back and forth. If you guys have specific reactions or things you want to talk about while the chapter is going, but with that, I'm just gonna hop in. I wasn't hysterical, Harley told Dr. Leland, barely managing not to shout, but I just discovered my patient had been kidnapped. Sitting in the chair beside her bed in the Gotham City Hospital ER, Dr. Leland squeezed her eyes shut for a moment. When she opened them again, she looked weary. That's not how Nathan tells it. What does he know? He's concussed. He probably didn't even know where he was, Harley snapped. My patient was in shock when he clambered out of the van after it had rolled over who knows how many times. It tipped over on its side after it went into the ditch. It never rolled, not even once, Dr. Leland sounded. Dr. Leland sounded like she was having trouble keeping her patience. What did she have to be upset about? Her patient hadn't been kidnapped. Did they give that driver a blood test? She asked, lowering her voice. How does a so-called experienced driver end up in a ditch in good weather with almost no traffic on the road? Dr. Quinzel, what is wrong with you? Dr. Leland demanded, her face red with exasperation and anger. What possessed you to put the Joker in a van without restraints or armed guards? Please tell me he overpowered you and threatened your life. Tell me you acted in fear of your own safety. Harley shook her head, bewildered. I don't understand. What don't you understand? Dr. Leland said, looking more exasperated. I wanted to show you how far he had come, Harley told her, so when you came back, you'd see how much he's recovered. There wasn't a seat for me, so I had to take my own car. She went on to explain how the driver had left when she had gone inside to get her car keys, and how the van was already in the ditch when she caught up with them. Her smart car had a top speed of 80 miles per hour. The van driver must have been on something and driving like a maniac. Let me move the page. There we go. Experienced transport driver my eye, Harley said, getting worked up again. I demand he be tested for every drug there is. Where are you going? Dr. Leland didn't answer, as she left the treatment bay, pulling the curtains shut behind her. Then she poked her head back in. Don't move, she ordered. I won't, Harley said in a small voice. So, right there, we got a page break. The only thing that we really have so far as new information is we've got the location of the Gotham City Hospital ER. So I can pop that into my notes real quick. Well, hey, undercover brother Tyrone. Thanks for joining us. We're going through the next two chapters of the Harley Quinn Mad Love novel. If you're familiar with the comic and cartoon, this is going to be the part where Harley is talking about Joker had been escaped for 3 weeks during the flashback to her time at Arkham. Though here we are not having it framed as a flashback. We are watching it as it happens, but it's also modernized. There are smart cars, and smartphones and viral videos, all kinds of fun modern technology. So it doesn't seem like it'll work out quite in the canon of the DC animated universe, but it is still fun to see an expanded version of the story nonetheless and modernized. This is like reading time at primary school. Man, I tell you what, I've been I guess you might be from out of America. We call it elementary school here, I believe. Unless that's your version of middle school, might be primary school. I don't know. But man, I have been nostalgic for back in the school days lately. So that sounds like it makes this even more fun. I'd love to see a full-length animated film based on this book. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And you know, with how often they've been making, I guess, adaptations of classic comic stories for the DC Universe original animated movie lines, I don't see why they wouldn't. I know that there's, you know, obviously there is an animated version of this already, but an expanded version would be a lot of fun. I only know the old kids cartoons from Bruce Timm, but I'll listen. Hey, I mean, this is you know, Mad Love was one of those cartoons in the new Batman Adventures. The one where we learn Harley's backstory. Where are we? It didn't take long for Joan Leland to put together what had happened. A couple of miles from the county pool, the Joker had removed his seatbelt, attacked the other passengers, especially Dr. Patel, and then gone after the driver, forcing the van off the road and into a ditch. After giving Dr. Patel a few extra kicks, the Joker had climbed out of the van and made a cell phone call. A minute or two later, a car appeared and picked him up. No one got a look at the driver, and the best description anyone gave of the car was that it had been a light color beige or cream. The cell phone interested Dr. Leland more than the car. Nathan said the Joker had it with him, and on hearing this, her heart sank. Harley Quinzel knew patients were forbidden to have cell phones, and staff members could be fired just for letting a patient borrow one. If she confronted her, the silly little girl probably wouldn't even deny it. She should just fire Dr. Quinzel and be done with it, Joan Leland thought. Except that would leave them short-handed, and now they also had to do without Dr. Patel. Everything might have been different if Dr. Davis hadn't been late for work. Dr. Davis was almost never late, but this morning he had gone out to his car and found 3 flat tires. Because it was rush hour, he'd had to wait ages for a tow truck and then even longer at the garage for someone to change the tires. While he'd been waiting, he had called Dr. Patel to say he'd had some car trouble and he'd meet the group at the county pool. Dr. Patel had wanted to wait for him, but Dr. Davis insisted they go ahead. If they weren't going to cancel it because Dr. Leland couldn't be there, they shouldn't delay it just because he was running late. Ooh, excuse me. Dr. Leland asked the nurses and the orderlies why they had gone along with Dr. Quinzel's putting the Joker in the van. They all said the same thing. Dr. Quinzel told us it was authorized. We assumed that meant you okayed it. You okay everything she does. So there it was, the awful truth. It wasn't Dr. Davis's fault, or Dr. Patel's, or even the Joker's. Joan Leland had only herself to blame for this breathtaking instance of foobar. By allowing herself to be dazzled by Harley Quinzel's fancy psychiatric footwork, she had somehow given her too much credibility. This is the way the world ends, Joan Leland thought miserably, not with a bang or a whimper, but by assumption. Better luck next universe. Only the world wasn't going to end. Of course, that would be too easy. The world would go on, and she'd have to answer for every misstep and wrong that had resulted in the Joker's escape. When the board asked her what she had to say for herself, would she have the nerve to tell them she had allowed Harleen to treat the Joker exclusively because it had been the easiest thing to do? Yes, it had made extra work for her and the other staff psychiatrists, but it had kept the Joker too busy to stir up trouble. He hadn't been bribing her orderlies to smuggle things in or out for him, or instigating disturbances among the other patients, or dreaming up how to prank the staff in new and dangerous ways whenever he got bored. Dr. Leland had hoped, he'd be so infatuated with his pretty young therapist, he might cooperate with treatment and improve in spite of himself, and it had kept the new doctor too busy to come up with another fiasco like the women's group. It also kept her too busy to ask more questions about board members who came and went at all hours, and the odd characters and even odder equipment they brought with them. Dr. Leland sighed. If this were any other hospital, she would have already been fired. It was still a possibility, if the board of directors ever found anyone stupid enough to take her job. Only in Gotham. All right, so there's nothing new to add to the notes there, since most of that was Leland talking to herself. School time nostalgia's been hitting me too lately. I caught myself wishing that I had more photos from primary school the other day, which is pretty damn weird since I've always hated being photographed. Yeah, I not too long ago I was trying to like get all of my family photos from all of my siblings together and put together like a large cloud drive of like, here's all of the photos and memories of all of us, yada yada yada. So I feel that for sure. I actually need to put more work into doing that, but obviously there's a lot of pressing stuff right now, and that's why I've been wasting most of my time playing Borderlands. Always love to put off the pressing matters. But yeah, no, that nostalgia's been hitting me a lot lately. My brother and I have actually been talking about potentially starting a second channel where we basically just kind of discuss like media and toys and events and stuff from our childhood. We're working on putting together a list of a lot of different ideas, and hopefully after we get that list of ideas to a place where we're just like, yeah, this seems like a fun thing that we should do for sure, rather than just pontificating on it. Hopefully we can figure out a style and kind of way for the show to work, because I feel like the joy of doing a project with my brother would be having it be somewhat conversational, but I don't want to do like an hours long podcast kind of situation. I do like doing the more digestible videos like we do with Watchtower Database. So right now I think the idea is that we do like a scripted intro and outro, and maybe like just have a conversation in between those, and then kind of edit it down or something. But I'm not too entirely sure yet. But that's just an idea that we've been kind of trying to cook up. Damn, it's hardly the end of the world, but did not think they'd put the phrase "foobar" in a DCAU book, considering what it is literally shorthand for. I've seen the phrase "foobar" before, but I'm not terribly familiar with it. I'm sure one of you can put the answer in the chat faster than me Googling it, but I'm going to Google it. It's a 2002 film. Foobar, fucked up beyond all recognition. Okay, yeah. So this, I'm not sure if you've been here with this book from the start, but this book is a lot more adult than most of the DCAU stuff is. One of the things, like from the very start, was that Harley almost got kidnapped and sold into child trafficking. So they're not afraid to get a little bit more on the risque side here. Where was I? The GCPD said the Joker would likely have all the employees' home addresses. Until he could be recaptured, their families would be taken to safe houses while staff were to remain under guard at the asylum, which was the one place the Joker would avoid. Harley was the only one who argued. She pleaded with them to let her go back to her apartment. If the Joker knew she was there, he would come straight to her, and she could bring him back to Arkham without anyone getting hurt. Or rather, without the cops giving the Joker a beatdown for being kidnapped by some lunatic. But she didn't say that out loud. She tried to talk to Dr. Leland, but her boss wasn't having any of it. "Harleen, the only reason I haven't fired you is it would take ages to find a replacement who isn't just as bad or worse." Dr. Leland wasn't yelling as much as before, but Harley thought she was still too emotional, which made her feel disappointed and a little heartbroken. Her boss was letting her personal feelings interfere with her job. The woman was losing her edge. On the other hand, maybe she shouldn't have been surprised, Harley thought. Like everyone else in the vicinity, Dr. Leland was Team Batman. And now that she was thinking of it, Had Joan Leland ever really had an edge? Harley thought back to her first day on the job, only a few months back, but it seemed like a lifetime ago now. When Killer Croc had come charging up the hallway, who laid him out and with one blow? The chief of psychiatry? Hardly. Dr. Leland had frozen like a rabbit in the high beams of a Humvee. The orderlies chasing him were 20 feet behind. If she hadn't started work that day, Dr. Joan Leland would have been Killer Croc's brunch. Management made people soft. Their reflexes went first. Then they started missing things because they spent so much time reading or writing reports, it ruined their eyesight. Then they lost their nerve. They got too scared to do anything that hadn't been pre-approved by a bunch of bureaucrats. They didn't do anything too difficult or complicated either. They traded the road less traveled for the path of least resistance, and having also lost their stamina, went home exhausted every night. Harley couldn't feel all that sorry for Dr. Leland, not when she was so worried about the Joker. He was possibly out there, all alone, without her to comfort or guide him. Possibly still in the clutches of a kidnapper crazier than anyone in Arkham. What if some of his old gang had been in the car, the few that weren't in prison? What if they'd been plotting to free him, but then after taking him away, they discovered he wasn't a criminal anymore? Harley couldn't even imagine what they might do to him. They were such bad people. So right there, we do have a couple things to note at that page break. We've got that Harley's been working at Arkham for just a matter of months. Well, if my computer would let me click on things. Harley's only been at Arkham a few months. And that was on page 193 in my print book, I do believe. Yeah. And then we got a mention of Humvees, which I know is a kind of vehicle. I don't remember specifically if that's like that's the Hummer, right? I think the one that was like really popular in the early 2000s when we went to war. Yeah, basically. I mean, it's the military version of but when did they start making these? Because I don't know if I should list that as a not canon thing, because, you know, the technology doesn't match the time that this would, Humvees, 1983. Okay, nope. So I can just put, I could put that in the objects, since it was a capitalized object. That's normally the only objects I put in this object thing, unless it's like a specific, like a, I don't know, the lasso of truth or something like that. Can't say I've been in for the whole thing, no, just popping my head in every now and then when you're live and I'm around, but geez, child trafficking? Well, okay then, you're not kidding when you say it's a little more adult than the rest of the universe. Bet this author wouldn't have had 0 deaths for the novelization of when Lex hacks into the Watchtower canon. Oh geez, yeah. I could only imagine. But yeah, most of the DCAU tie-in books are like 100% like as kiddie, if not more so, than the cartoons themselves. But this having come out in 2018, you know, years after the cartoon, rather than being a direct tie-in with the cartoon episode, it gives them a license to be a bit more adult. The only other DCAU book so far that we've gone through that's been quite as adult was the Batman Rise of Sin-Tzu novelization, which I think they kind of get a pass on because it's based off of the video game rather than based off of the TV show. But I'm honestly curious if some of the old like there are a couple Batman the Animated Series tie-in novels that take the plots of 2 different episodes and smash them together as if they're one story. And I'm curious to see, to get around to those and see if they are quite as adult, because they're a bit thicker books as well. Not as thick as this, but thicker than, you know, all of the Justice League Junior novels and everything that we've gone through. So, you know, I imagine that they were probably made more towards adults, especially since Batman the Animated Series was airing in prime time, and adults and children were watching it. Danny says, I can't believe that Harley's still seeing the Joker after what he did in the Capitol yesterday. Oh, Jesus. There was... did you see there was, like, one photo of someone dressed up as Joker there? I assume that's probably why you're making the joke, but I don't know if you... if that might just be coincidence or not. But yeah, there was definitely someone dressed up as Joker. God, I'm like... The whole thing that's been going around Twitter of like, no, this was secretly Antifa undercover, and like that being parroted by a couple of Congress people like Matt Gaetz and Louis Gohmert has been just insane to watch, because so many of the people that they're saying specifically are Antifa. There was a lot of documentation of them like throughout at least the past year being very vocal Trump supporters. So it doesn't add up, and it's a bit weird that like these people are trying to live in a different reality just to try to convince their brains not to break once they realize that they are on the wrong side of things. That whole event was both horrifying and kind of hilarious due to their incompetence. Oh, for sure. I would love. I saw like one piece on it from an international media outlet that kind of framed it a lot differently than how American news has been framing it, and so I feel like it would be interesting to see more of that. They got footage of the people who like ripped the plaque off of Nancy Pelosi's door. I was making a joke on Twitter, being like, I wasn't sure that you know, this is Antifa conspiracy had any weight to it, but now that I see that they dislike Nancy Pelosi, I don't know. But yeah, it's God, yesterday was a shit show, and I'm kind of concerned for, you know, what happens the next couple weeks, especially if they don't remove Trump, because there's so many different ways this can go, right? Like, if they remove Trump, these same people are going to feel aggrieved, but if they don't remove Trump, then these same people are going to feel empowered. And whatever goes on the 20th, I'm sure is going to be a shit show, because that's when inauguration is. And typically, left-wing activists do try to have protests around inauguration. And so if the right-wing people are going to be there as well, that could be a bit of a shit show. Not to mention the goofy ass costumes. Are you telling me that you're not a fan of QAnon shaman? Shaman? Did I just say shaman? ShamWow. ShamWow. There we go. Joker still at large. Body count rises. GC mayor demands swift action. This is Yolanda McKenzie outside City Hall. It's day 3 of the Joker's crime rampage, and the police seem to be no closer to taking the clown prince of crime back into custody. Commissioner James Gordon has ordered all police leave vacations and days off canceled as that all police leave vacations and days off canceled as the manhunt continues. When asked if this means he's lost faith in Batman, the commissioner said, quote, "The GCPD does not sit around eating donuts and waiting for the Cape Crusader to do their job for them," unquote. The mayor met with the city council this morning. Harley put her head down on her desk and let the sound from the flat screen TV on the wall wash over her like so much meaningless noise. Dr. Leland had insisted the board install TV monitors in all the doctor's offices as well as the nurses' lounge. The staff needed to keep up with the latest developments. When Harley had thanked Dr. Leland, her boss had looked at her coldly and said, it's for your office, not you." Apparently, her boss was still pretty mad at her. Harley kept waiting for Dr. Leland to have her arrested or report her to the medical board for disciplinary action, but then she'd overheard the nurses talking about how the Arkham Board of Directors were adamant that Harley's involvement in the Joker's escape must never come out. The scandal could close the asylum, everyone would lose their jobs, and the patients would be sent to facilities or prisons not equipped to deal with their brand of crazy. Didn't that just figure, Harley thought. In wanting to be honest and straightforward, she had become a scandal to be covered up. It was the bureaucrat's version of beating someone up for being a crime victim. She couldn't win for losing. Okay, so we got a couple things there. I don't think we've had Commissioner Gordon mentioned yet, but first we have Yolanda McKenzie, and then we have Commissioner James Gordon. We got a mention of City Hall. Oh, City Hall's not in the objects; it's in the locations. And then we had Joker's been crime spreeing for 3 days. And that is page 194. I'm a limey over the pond, but even my dad, who is UK standards more right-leaning, actually burst out laughing at the "it was Antifa dressed up as Trump voters" thing, and he has no idea what the heck an Antifa is. It could be a type of cheese for all. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so my dad is a, I call him Dad because, you know, I don't know what other word to use for him ever since I cut him out of my biological father, who, you know, I don't consider to be my dad because I've cut him out of my life. But you know, I'd still refer to him as Dad for shorthand because it's easier to understand than explaining all of this. He is a right-wing talk show host and has been pushing the "it was Antifa" conspiracy all day yesterday, and I haven't blocked on Twitter, but I still respond to a lot of his stuff. A, because it's fun to yell at him for being a complete and total dipshit, but B, and more primarily, because I hope that, you know, I am able to at least say something that while he cannot see it, perhaps someone in his audience who respects him may see it and double think, you know, whether it's a good idea to take him seriously or not. So he's been doing the whole this is secret Antifa thing all day yesterday, and like I had to get on his case about it because it's just. It's nuts. These people are like documented Trump supporters. Like they were sharing a photo of a dude who they thought had a hammer and sickle tattoo, and it's super pixelated. So like you could say it's generally the same shape, but turns out, as others have pointed out, because this dude's presence has been known for a while, like he's on literally the what is it, the Philly Antifa website as like, hey, this is a person to watch out for at protests because of how prominent he makes himself. The dude's tattoo isn't a hammer and sickle, but it's something from the Dishonored video games, and like just the fact that like these people take any of it seriously as if they're serious people who you should listen to them because these things vaguely look alike. It's just like, come on, man. Come on. Comics are better than books, or are you just saying the Mad Love comic is better than the Mad Love book, or just in general comics are better than books? Because I mean they're they're two different things that I don't know if it's fair to compare them. They're different ways of telling a story. But if you're talking about the Mad Love comic is better than the Mad Love book, maybe. That's personal opinion. It doesn't bother me much either way. That multiple versions of the same story exist. One giving a wider scope to that story. Also, I realized earlier that Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley could use their potential expulsion from the government, assuming that actually happens, of course, to frame themselves as victims of the swamp in their very likely 2024 presidential campaign. So that's terrifying. Hey, but at least we get a good movie title for a Swamp Thing movie, Victims of the Swamp. But yeah, anyway, back into the book. Oh, we still got a ways to go on this chapter. Where are we? Early in the morning of the 7th day after the accident, Harley had just gotten dressed in her office after a shower in the nurse's facilities when Nathan pounded on her door. "Dr. Quinzel, he's back! The Joker's back!" Harley ran to open the door. "Is he all right?" "He's fine," Nathan said, and went to pound on all the other office doors. Dr. Leland came out into the hall, tucking her blouse into her skirt. "Where is he?" she asked. "Downstairs, at the main reception desk," Nathan said. "How did he get here?" Harley called after him as he headed off with Dr. Leland. The orderly looked over his shoulder, grinning. "Batman caught him." Harley felt a surge of panic and ran after Nathan and Dr. Leland without bothering to lock her office. "Is he all right?" she asked. Dr. Leland gave her an annoyed glance as Nathan said, "He's okay. Batman had to tune him up a little bit, but he'll get over it." Her panic doubled. Harley rushed past them and tore down the large curved staircase to the main reception desk near the front door. There he was, the hero of Gotham City and guardian of the public morals, the mighty, mighty Batman. This was the first time Harley had seen him in person, and he was somewhat the worse for wear. The right sleeve of his silly costume had been torn off, a large portion of his cape was shredded, and his fancy tights were torn. But his mask was intact because God forbid Batman should ever show his face to the world, Harley thought bitterly. He was holding up what appeared to be a cluster of blood-stained rags. Then the rags groaned. "Put in!" Harley shrieked and lunged for the Joker just as Batman let go of him. She wasn't strong enough to hold his dead weight up by herself, but she managed to lower him gently to the floor and cradled him in her arms, while everyone else stood around gawking at what the bat had dragged in. A bat, for crying out loud. Harley knew if any of these people ever saw a real bat, they'd have tried to kill it. With a broom. How could they idolize someone dressed as a flying rat? The Joker groaned again, resting his head on her shoulder. One eye had swollen shut, his nose was broken, and both his lips were split. He looked up at her with his one good eye. Harley wasn't sure he recognized her, but then he smiled painfully with his poor split lips. "My dear Dr. Quinzel," he said, his voice weak. "I missed you so much. I yearned for you. Tragically. So very tragically." Harley looked from his battered face to the costume vigilante, looming over her. She wanted to scream her hatred at him. She wanted to rip off his head and spit down his neck. But she had to hold onto her pudding. Infuriated, she heard herself growl, low in her throat. It was a surprisingly vicious noise. It should have been hard to read someone wearing a mask, but Batman's reaction couldn't have been plainer. He was completely nonplussed. Obviously, not used to being confronted by someone who wasn't an adoring fan, who didn't think his brutality deserved a gold star in a parade. Harley might have enjoyed it, but the Joker was in such a bad shape. She worried about permanent damage. Now she noticed that besides the ruined costume, the Batstard, okay, like bastard, but Batstard, got it, it's a pun. The Batstard had a fat lip and blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Her puddin' had gotten in a few licks. Whoever he was when he wasn't Batman, he'd have to stay out of sight for a few days. Right now, he was still gaping at her in disbelief. Harley glared right back defiantly. "Believe it, you thug," she thought at him. "Not everyone loves you." Then the nurses and orderlies lifted the Joker away from her, detaching him from her with efficient movements to put him on a gurney. Harley gave Batman one last furious glare and tried to follow the Joker to the medical ward, but Dr. Leland took hold of her arm. "We need to have a little talk." Dr. Leland blocked her from getting into the elevator and hustled her up the stairs into her office. So we've got that it's actually 7 days. It was a week in the book that Joker was out. Let me move these down a little bit so that I have some room for that. Get these chapters out of there. So Joker was gone from Arkham for 7 days. And that's going to be page 195, I believe? Yes, page 195. And I'm pretty sure that in the I know it's in the comic. I don't remember if it's in the TV show, but it was 3 weeks in Mad Love. Joker was gone for 3 weeks instead of just 1. Why is she disrespecting Batman so much? So, in the earlier chapters, whenever we were coming to get to know a young Harley Quinn, essentially, her dad was a small-time criminal who turned on a couple people in his gang and gave information to the cops about a heist that was going down, and the cops were able to stop that from happening. Those guys then found Harley's dad and brutalized him, and the cops that came up on the scene afterward, knowing that Harley's dad is, a known criminal, took him in and weren't the kindest to him, and Harley's little baby brain wasn't able to process this in a way that is in a way that would have been I don't know the word I'm looking for, but she wasn't really able to process it on the sense that her dad is also a criminal. In her mind, she's like, wait, I just saw my dad get the shit beat out of him, and now the cops are being dicks to him instead of helping him. What the hell is going on? And ever since then has had an issue with authority figures. So whenever she started hearing rumors of Batman in college, she automatically was second guessing the whole situation, his motives, and all of that. And I can't say that particularly she's wrong to question those motives. Not everything that Batman does is just, despite the fact that he's 9 times out of 10 framed to be in the right. And so whenever she started working at Arkham, and Joker started opening up about his interactions with Batman, it had been more of a affirmation to her that Batman is actually not a good guy, because she's looking at Joker not as a criminal, but as a as a mental patient, as one should do in a mental health facility. However, they should do it with in mind their crimes and everything, rather than say, no, you're not a criminal, you're just a victim. So she kind of threw out the fact that he was a criminal and used his interactions with Batman to reaffirm her stance that she should be skeptical of Batman, and so here we are. It's kind of a shame that that this is the way it's going, because they have throughout the book given more depth to Harley and her mental prowess. I'd like, for those of you who have read the comic, you'll remember that she slept with her professors to make her way through college. But in the book, that wasn't the case, and she actually like went out of her way to be a really good student and stuff. And so she's a lot smarter here than she was in the show. But they had to give some kind of way to despite making that change to still put her right into the Joker's palm. And so the way they decided to do that was, despite her being smart, she has this blind spot, which kind of feels like it makes her dumb. So it's so weird, because she's got like, I feel like she's correct about how the police should work. At least as a child, she was correct in it. But instead of forming a productive viewpoint around that, she just took it to be a gateway to be anti any authority whatsoever. I hear some nerd called Edward doesn't give bats much respect either. The Cobblepot guy too, it happens. Enigma was broken by Batman escaping the trap. I'm sure he'll respect him when he recovers. Harley was based as a child, and she's based now as an adult. That too. Batman whipped the Penguin even when blind. I came as soon as I could. I heard whom was tied up where. You remember who from somewhere? Me? I'm still the same guy. I just am mustached instead of bearded. So which is more canon? I mean, as far as in my mind, as far as like adaptations go, in the DCAU, I would say that the animated version of it would be the canon version, and the adaptations can add in extra context, for so long as they don't really dispute what we see in the animated properties. So with Mad Love, the comic, itself was set in the Batman animated series time, and then they adapted that for animation in TNBA. So, the TNBA would then kind of outpace the comic, and then this, had it not had all of the contradictions that it does, could have been used to be like, oh, so this is extra context to the things, but instead it's just it's more or less a this is a similar story, the same story, but being told in a different way, for a more modern audience. It's an update that's not necessarily set in any particular universe. But something doesn't have to be canon to be worthwhile and good. Headcanon. This book is canon to BTAC and nothing else. Oh God, you look like one of those dads who have the thick mustache when their child is young and you shave when they're older. I didn't know that was a specific brand of dad, but I'll take it. If we're being real, Maddie currently looks like Mario during his college years. Bum bum bum. I was thinking that it kind of looked like a Paul F. Tompkins mustache, but that's just me. Whenever he has a mustache, it looks kind of silly and very bushy on him. But it's a very memorable part of who he is as a celebrity. Yeah, so for those of you who have hopped in without getting the intro, the mustache isn't staying. I have been wanting to shave down a little bit, like just kind of maintain the beard rather than get rid of it. But my electric shaver seems to be busted, so I had to just, if I wanted to shave it all, I had to get stuff off of my face, and I did not have enough time to, with how thick my beard was, I did not have enough time to take care of the entire situation before hopping on the stream. But anywho, where were we? Oh, at the very top. I already scrolled it tight. We've already had a little talk, Harley said. My patient needs me. Dr. Leland pushed her down on the sofa. No, he doesn't, she said in the bossy voice Harley found so rankling. You don't understand, Harley began. No, you don't understand, Dr. Leland said. From now on, things are going to be very different around here. I know, Harley said. Thank God we can all finally go home. Harleen, focus! Dr. Leland snapped her fingers in Harley's face, making her jump. I'm going to contact the medical board about disciplinary action. In my opinion, you should lose your license to practice any kind of medicine, and you should be barred from any work involving counseling or therapy. Certain members of the Arkham board want to give you another chance. I don't. But all they'll allow me to do right now is suspend you for 2 weeks. But you can't, Harley said, on the verge of tears now. My patient needs me. You're the last thing he needs, Dr. Leland said angrily. In fact, I'm going to file a restraining order to keep you away from him. But you can't, Harley said again as tears spilled down her cheek. Oh, just shut the hell up, Dr. Leland yelled. That homicidal maniac got loose because of you. He forced the van into a ditch. Dr. Patel was seriously injured. He could have been killed, along with everyone else in the vehicle. I share the blame for making the biggest, stupidest, most egregious mistake of my career of my life. I believed you were a grown-up, when in fact you're an adolescent with more hormones than sense. You're a disgrace to this profession, and I'm a disgrace for putting my faith in you. Something I have to live with for the rest of my life. That's not all you'll have to live with, is it? Harley asked darkly, no longer crying. Or do payoffs from the board of directors give you selective amnesia? Dr. Leland looked as if Harley had slapped her. You're a pretty big disappointment to me too, Joan. Harley practically spat the name. I thought I wanted to be like you. I told myself, yeah, you're corrupt, but only a tiny bit, and only to get things Arkham needs. But you're no better than that leotard-wearing bully you call a hero. Dr. Leland looked down at her, as if from a great height. I should have realized your antipathy to Batman was a sign of a deeper disturbance, a pathological resistance to authority that... Can it, lady? Harley said. Her tough Brooklyn cookie voice came out unbidden, and it wasn't kidding around. Save your misplaced hero worship for when you talk to your shrink about how you always go for unavailable guys, especially ones dressed like vermin. Don't bother firing me. I'll fire myself! Effective immediately. And then I'll file my own court order to take custody of my patient on the grounds that your so-called therapy is actually the legalized abuse of people with no legal recourse, so they have to escape. Dr. Leland's complexion had gone a bit ashy, and for a moment, Harley thought she was going to faint. Good, thought with a hot rush of spiteful glee. It was about time she found out the world didn't actually belong to antiseptic, buttoned-down people like her, no matter how bossy they were. Harley stood up and felt even more gratified when the other woman took a couple of quick steps back. Scrolled a little too far. You can't do that, Dr. Leland said. She was trying to be stern, but her voice shook and there was fear in her eyes. Just watch me, sister, Harley said. Some of those specialists your precious board members bring in here look an awful lot like known associates of Hugo Strange. You think Channel 7 investigative news might be interested? I'd bet your pension they would. She turned to leave. Where do you think you're going? Dr. Leland demanded, then backed up a few more steps when Harley whirled on her. What do you care? Harley said, sticking one fist on her hip. I don't work here. Well, you'd better be back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning for a meeting with the board, Dr. Leland said, still trying to reassert her authority. You're still answerable to Arkham Asylum and the board of directors for what you've done. They may decide to file criminal charges. Is that so? Harley laughed in her face. You can try and make me, but my money ain't on you, Joni. If you don't show up, the consequences will be serious, Dr. Leland replied, her voice shaking even more. Extremely serious. Harley laughed again. Yeah? What you gonna do? Fire me? Tattle to Batman? You just be here, Dr. Leland called after her as she walked out and slammed the door behind her. Harley stopped only to grab her purse and raincoat from her office, her ex-office. On her way out, she ran into Nathan. Hey, bud, she said and slipped a $20 bill into his shirt pocket. I need a favor. You up for it? Nathan gaped at her. She couldn't tell what he was more astonished by, her Brooklyn accent or the money or both, but he nodded okay. I want you to tell my pudding the situation's temporary, and I'm working on a solution, she said. Can you remember that? He looked even more flabbergasted. You want me to talk to your dessert? He blinked. What flavor? Harley forced herself to smile at him instead of grabbing him by his hair and ramming his head into the wall. Not my pudding, she said, over-enunciating. My pudding! The Joker! She paused, watching his face as he took this in. Will you do that for me, hun? I'll know if you don't, and the consequences will be serious. Extremely serious. Tell the Joker the situation's temporary. You're working on a solution, he said dutifully. You got it, sweetie. Harley pinched his cheek hard enough to make him wince and swept out the front door with a flamboyant swish of her raincoat. So we don't have a lot more to add there, though we've been getting a lot of Hugo Strange references, and that's kind of piqued my curiosity. I don't know if we're actually going to deal with him at some point, but I've been putting the references to him over here because I feel like at the very least they might be references to another comic or something, like a known comic story. So I figured at the very least, having his specific references might be helpful later on for tracking down if anything else is canon specifically to this story. But with that, we have ended chapter 23, and now we have chapter 24. Oh geez, we're already at the hour mark. Is chapter 24 a short one? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 11 pages. You know what? We'll keep going with it. We will do both chapters. Oh dang, Maddie has a mustache. Yeah, I've gone over that a couple times. There was a shaving incident. It's not staying. Probably, unless y'all think it should stay. In that case, I don't know. Maybe it'll stay. Hugo Strange. So Arkham City then. Yeah. See, I've been trying to figure out specifically what it is they're trying to reference. Who knows? Maybe this is like a Mad Love, but for the Arkhamverse, right? Because they kind of hinted at that in in Arkham Asylum. That happened through the audio tapes and everything. God, I'm kind of hungry, and I don't have anything to snack on right now. That's all right. Let's try to get through chapter 24. Also, something is happening to Twitch. I can't access the emotes, only the ones infrequently used. Huh. That's weird. I don't know. I don't know anything about the Twitch emotes, or anything like that. So I am not too sure. You know what? I'm actually thinking that I'm getting like hungry enough that I should probably actually go eat lunch, because I didn't have a chance to do that before this, because of the shaving mishap. So I think maybe we'll save chapter 24 for next time instead of doing it today. Just because chapter 23 took us an hour to get through, surprisingly. I don't feel like it was a long chapter, but we did have a couple side tangents on yesterday's events that did prolong the situation. So we'll save chapter 24 for next week, but I will be back on I'll be back on Saturday. We've been working on building the DCAU timeline as an actual tangible thing. Let me see if I can kind of pull up what we've got so far, so that those of you who haven't been tuning in for Saturday broadcasts will have an idea of what you're missing out on. We're as always, we've been wanting to build the most in-depth DCAU timeline. That's a lot of why we've had timeline videos and everything like that. But even after we put out timeline videos, there is a lot of the time extra information that we find out later, or that just didn't have use in the video, as due to how we're trying to do pacing, or anything like that, right? Like, why should I say this thing happens here when we've already got something that we know happens, X place after that would basically sandwich that thing in, right? So what we've been doing lately is we went through the Batman Beyond timeline video that I did, I guess pretty close to the start of my time with Watchtower Database, and we've been slotting everything in to, if it will load, to this visual graph, and then putting under it like all of the notes and everything that we've got. It's taking its time trying to load. It does have problems trying to load things on this website if I didn't already have them loaded before going into stream, because the computer that I'm using doesn't have a lot of processing power, because it's essentially a tablet with a keyboard attached to it. Maybe it won't load, but I will on Saturday. I will have it loaded before going into stream, so you'll be able to definitely see it then. Right now, we've got like most of the stuff from Batman Beyond placed. I've still got to go in and clean up last Saturday's notes sections, because stuff like this happens on screen where it's on stream where things don't want to load properly. So essentially, I've just been taking notes and putting them into the timeline without putting like the screen caps that solidify my notes, and I typically do that in between streams. But yeah, we still have a couple Batman Beyond websites to go through, and I'm trying to think what else. We've got some websites to go through. We've got some comic notes to go through, and I think I had notes elsewhere that needed to be addressed, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Well, here's what it looks like when it's trying to load the timeline. But it looks a lot better when it's actually loaded. Everything is color coded. There it goes. Boom. So the stuff that's black and purple, that's like stuff that happened on screen during Batman Beyond. The white and black stuff is going to be stuff that was that happened but was only mentioned. And then this stuff down here under the episode title cards is the evidence that backs up placements and everything. Excuse me. So this is something we'll continue to work on Saturday night. It's going to be 6 p.m. Pacific time. I'm not sure what time that is elsewhere. I know Eastern time. It's 9 p.m. Oh, there's the full thing. It decided to go all the way out. We're even trying to like add in stuff that like most people may not add in with DCAU timelines. Like if I can zoom in on this area over here, though it doesn't seem to want me to. These three things right here, like Toonami had in Asia, Toonami Asia had a storyline that they did for a little while that involved the DCAU heroes to some degree teaming up with the likes of Ben 10 and Generator Rex to save Earth 9. Whatever Earth 9. Jeez, now the zoom went crazy. There it goes. So these, like, that's stuff that like no one would ever really put on a timeline, except for people who are trying to be way too over the top, which is kind of my thing. And so hopefully, while we're going through all of this, I'll be able to show y'all, fun stuff that's DCAU related that you might not be aware of, whether it's stuff like that or like comics that were just done as advertisements, essentially, like just stuck into magazines or Burger King Kids Club comics, stuff like that. And by the end of this, hopefully we'll have the most in-depth DCAU timeline of all time. I want this to be like everything DCAU, whether it ends up being canon or not, and would like it to be splitting out into different branches and stuff along the way. And so we'll see what that looks like. Right now, we've only got one of the Batman Beyond comics on it, because there wasn't a lot to place some of them, and so this one we know that it at least comes after Meltdown and before Ascension because of the not Pax and Powers, Derek Powers' is Blight. So we know it's in this area of time, but I'm it's not too sure which specific 2 episodes it falls in between. So I got it down here. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun going through this stuff on Saturdays, and those streams typically go a bit longer. I think we've done 2 that were 4 hours. We've done 1 that was 2 hours. So it's a fun time. So come back around for that. I don't know that we have a new video this Sunday. It was going to be the Batman Adventures Continues Christmas special finale. But then James decided to go and have a baby yesterday. James is a dad now. And so he hasn't had time to edit, which, like, it's unfortunate because, first him and his wife got COVID and we had to miss a video there. And now they're having a baby, which is less of an unfortunate thing. But, like, we were only supposed to really be skipping one of the weeks instead of skipping 2 weeks on video content. So, it is what it is. Life goes on. We're rolling with the punches. But if it gets to Sunday and we don't have a new video and y'all are itching for some Watchtower database, pull up some of the old content. But, be sure to come by on Saturday for the stream. I'm not entirely sure if James is streaming next week or not, because he's dealing with new dad shit, but our streaming schedule is usually Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all at noon. On Tuesdays, James typically does a Justice League Adventures issue breakdown and draws a character that's exclusive to the Justice League Adventures comics. On Wednesdays, Ted will typically be playing 8-bit, 16-bit DCAU tie-in games. I think he said that his computer really only has the power to do like Game Boy emulators, which is weird because I remember playing like N64 games on my old computer. so I'm not sure why Ted's computer has problem processing that, but it is what it is. And we will be back next Thursday with Mad Love. But yeah, that's enough plugging the rest of everything. I'm gonna go ahead and make myself some lunch. Sorry we couldn't get through both of the chapters this week, but it is what it is. I'm just a hungry boy, and I need to feed. So I will see you all on Saturday, hopefully. You all take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I love y'all. Mwah. I'm probably going to shave this off, too, unless you all think I should keep it. But I'll never know, because the stream is ending. Bye, everyone.